100 Days of Chaos Zero Nightmare. What has and hasn't worked so far? I've made a list of things that I've liked, things that I believe can be improved, and others that are flat out bad or baffling. Obviously this list is an absolute truth, it's not subjective. If you disagree with anything, leave a comment and let YouTube know you're wrong. Starting off with some praise, I believe that where they clearly hit it off the park is the endgame loop. I've lost count of gacha games where the daily cycle is, oh, I completed my daily tasks in 5 minutes and now there is nothing to do. The Chaos system is essentially a roguelike game hidden within a gacha shell. As an enjoyer of card and roguelike games, if the Chaos Explorations were a standalone game on Steam for like $10, I would buy it and play it daily. It's the reason why I have well over 500 hours in the game of actual gameplay. Speaking of gameplay, I do like it a lot. It's clearly heavily inspired from games like Darkest Dungeon and Slave Spire, but it feels unique enough to play. Playing out our turns properly, as well as developing a plan to improve our save files, feels really rewarding to me. And even when a run ends up not providing an improvement to my characters, I've still had a fun time. I will use the general turn characters to talk about both our combatants and partners, just for the sake of simplicity and to talk about them in a single group. The roster is getting larger patch by patch, and so far the design and characterization have been excellent, although characters will also appear later in a less positive section of the video. Animations are great and they hired some extremely talented voice actors for the game. It's clear to me that they really want the characters to be an important and memorable part of the game. I want to end this section of the video mentioning the sound design. There are some really beautiful pieces of music that play in the background of our adventures and in the menus. I have more than once paused playing the game just to listen to the music. It's really well composed. Also, the sound effects during combat add a lot of character to the game. They really make some attacks feel heavy and some disgusting moments feel more visceral. It's now time to descend from the pedestal of holiness and take a dive in the swamp of toxic slimes. There are a few aspects of the game that can definitely be improved, but they're not necessarily game-breaking or a complete detriment to the experience of Chaos Zero Nightmare. The main story has been the topic of a whole video from the developers, explaining why it had the issues and how they're planning to rework it. I went through the whole story without skipping any dialogue because some of the NPCs we meet along the way look amazing and I always wonder which of them will eventually be playable. To me it started out strong, but the later stages ended up being less interesting than what they could have been. I'm looking forward to its rework. It's just a pity that our first playthrough has so far not been particularly memorable. An aspect that has not helped the story and that is also a problem for the gameplay is the localization. I don't mind the occasional typo that made it through the spell checking process, but in the game there are multiple instances of sentences making very questionable sense, and game mechanics don't be explained properly. While it's true that they're working on it, it's really surprising that the game released with some sentences reminding me of a all your base are belong to us era of Japanese games getting RNG translations into English. Generally speaking, game mechanics can always be a hit or miss. I'm usually annoyed by enemies with game mechanics that restrict our options. Ever since the first day video games existed, we all agreed that it made sense for a fire elemental to be weak to water damage and immune to fire damage. But in many games we get game mechanics that feel simply annoying to deal with, and especially in gacha games tend to favor a specific characters over others. I really dislike enemies with mechanics like, oh, hold my action, I activate a buff, and if you hit me while I have that buff, I'm going to deal a gazillion damage back to you. It's a mechanic that forces us to play suboptimal turns, using only a limited amount of cards, or has to save files with multiple Wanderers of the Void just to ignore the game mechanic altogether. I'm a bit worried about what might happen in the future, because an aspect that I really dislike in many gacha games is the break system working as a rock-paper-scissors routine, where we simply pick our characters based on the element and auto-win. We have not had this so far in Chaos Zero Nightmare, and even Serenial, who has break character vibes in her kit, has ways to perform well even against enemies that are not weak to instinct damage. I personally prefer fights like the Giga Crab or the Beefy Dude that are just trustworthy opponents who are there to test how well built our characters are. I have a bittersweet relationship with the arc. I enjoy hanging out with my characters, but as Nono reminded us in the 100 days video, the restaurant is a place that I very rarely use. I'm close to fully activating the nodes to improve the arc, so that will soon be one fewer thing to do. Trauma codes are interesting stories, and I especially enjoy the Narias, but not having the characters void feels like such a waste. The UI of the game is not designed in a way that is very friendly for humans. There are some menus that are ongoing nightmares to navigate and require multiple unnecessary clicks just to do basic stuff. I misclicked the stuff in the Zero System menu countless times, and it often happens that really important stuff is hidden in a menu that isn't easy or intuitive to find. The gap in polish between the gameplay and features like localization and UI is really surprising to me.
Let's now take a deep dive to the depths of despair.
Chaos Zero Nightmare is far from being a perfect game, and some parts of it are really bad things. The absolutely first thing that has to be mentioned is character balance. We had a limited playtest. We all reported our thoughts regarding some characters. Yet, these first 3 months have seen a crazy amount of changes due to the power level of characters being all over the place. Smilegate's internal testing team has been severely lacking if I missed out on the absolutely absurd interaction between Tress and Cassius. It's fine to have some characters sitting above the rarity tier, but they released an endgame mode that was trivialized by 2 4-star characters, including one we get for free. While this would be bad in and of its own, the first 3 combatants that were released left a lot to be desired. Haru is a fine single target damage dealer, but she pales in comparison to melee. Yuki barely feels like a 5-star character, and was the first time when the developers actually stated in public that they were looking to rework her. And while Kizuru's performance is okay-ish, playing her feels really clunky and is not particularly satisfying. All of them are getting buff, with Kizuru basically getting a whole kit rework. This is good, but it should not have happened in the first place. In many gacha games I've seen launch characters getting buffed after 3 years or so. In Chaos Zero Nightmare we're getting buffs and reworks 3 months into it. Better testing is absolutely required, because I fall in the category of players who will enjoy their favorite character regardless of spreadsheets and meta-related stuff. But there are some, actually many, who could simply drop the game if they dumped a couple hundred pulls for a combatant and then partner on day 1 only to find out it's a downgrade over someone they already have. Autoplay. This is... Look, I cannot believe it, okay? It's unfathomable. In many games I play, autoplay is a feature I use for dull, repeating tasks, so that I can auto-clear battles while I do something else. The autoplay in Chaos Zero Nightmare does not have a bad AI. It has no AI. I will never believe that a human has actually put time into the autoplay system. It has to be fully based on RNG. I've seen Rei removing from the game Yuki's most important cards to draw 1 card while having no action points left. I've seen cards with Finale being played first. I've seen damage buffs used at the end of a turn after dumping all the damage dealing cards. I just cannot believe it has a system. It's the worst autoplay feature I've ever seen implemented in any game I've ever played. Luckily, my Serenial has a build that can mow through the game even on autoplay, but they have to improve it. It cannot get any worse. The last topic I want to discuss is something that I occasionally see mentioned even on Reddit and other social media. The gooning designs. When we actually play our characters, the chibi models are really cute and charming. I love all of them. The out-of-combat designs occasionally have questionable choices. The first thing that come to mind are Yuking oversized badonkers and Kizuru's bondage stuff, but for me even Narya suffered from this a little bit. She was created in a lab for research purposes. Which researcher gave her a Sydney Sweeney rec? For me most of the wallpapers are unusable. I play Chaos Zero Nightmare at home, at work while I pretend to be a productive member of society, and on my long bus commute to work. The vast majority of combatant wallpapers are something I wouldn't dare to show in public. I'm basically using Veronica's 24/7 because it's cute. Serenia's wallpaper and the dialogue behind it left me speechless. I guess I'm not the target audience for that level of fan service. For me there is such a design inconsistency between the cute chibis I enjoy watching during my Chaos run and the stuff that could get me thrown out of a bus. I guess the devs want to partially appeal to the kind of player base that just wants to collect characters to goon to. I just wish there were de-gunified wallpaper options and that out-of-combat characters looked more like Meilin, Serenial and Haru. Cute, attractive, but not overly sexualized. That was all from yours truly. Thank you for sticking with me to the end of the video and let me know what you think.